Early this morning in Sosnowiec, Poland, a police officer shot an aggressive assailant who was vandalizing cars and threatening passers-by with a metal pipe. Despite being ordered to stop, the man did not comply with the orders of the officer, who then fired shots in his direction. The wounded man was taken to hospital, but despite immediate surgery, he died. The Silesian Regional Police reported the incident this morning. He damaged parked cars and a city bus. When the police arrived at the scene, the man directed his aggression towards them and did not comply with their orders. Due to the immediate threat to life and health, the police used firearms, firing shots at the attacker. According to witnesses, the man was barefoot, behaved aggressively, and did not respond to police calls. The police confirmed that he was a Polish national. Numerous posts and words of support for the police officer's actions appeared online, but the prosecutor's office has launched an investigation. As a result of a preliminary inspection and the incident, 2 proceedings have been initiated at the district prosecutor's office in Sosnowiec, and 2 investigations will be conducted in parallel. The first concerns a serious injury to an unidentified man resulting in his death, which was a consequence of alleged abuse of power by identified police officers, consisting of the improper use of service firearms during the intervention. The second investigation concerns an active assault on police officers with a dangerous object in the form of a metal pipe. The second of the acts covered by this investigation is the destruction of property by a man who is now deceased. This is a typical procedure conducted by the prosecutor's office in cases involving the use of firearms. It has been established that the man is a 45-year-old Polish citizen. An autopsy of the man is scheduled for tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, during which tissue samples will be collected for toxicological and histopathological testing. Netizens commented on the quick and effective response of the police. Firearms must be used sensibly and obviously in accordance with regulations, but their use is often necessary and effective, so police officers should have no doubt that, if these conditions are met, the use of firearms is most definitely appropriate and necessary, as a matter of course. This should be an example for others, so that they do not hesitate to draw their weapons and fire in such a situation. Several hours have passed since the incident, and the motives for this man's behavior remain unknown. He may have been under the influence of psychoactive substances or suffering from an illness. The district prosecutor's office in Sosnowiec is investigating the circumstances.
The Ukrainian parliament restored the independence of 2 anti-corruption agencies, and the president immediately signed the bill into law. Just last week, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office were placed under the control of the presidential administration, and their heads had been accused of collaborating with Russia. Ukrainians concluded that their government was afraid of scrutiny of its corrupt activities, and therefore clearly had something to hide. It was precisely this widespread corruption that was one of the causes of the 24 Maidan Revolution. Putin's Russia, against which Ukraine has been fighting a fierce war for over 3 years, stands as a symbol of the exact kind of state privatization which Ukrainians wish to avoid. As such, thousands of young people took to the streets to protest against corruption. These were the first such demonstrations since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The political class could not have taken a different route. Street protest and threats to withhold foreign funding proved highly effective. This was all thanks to the determination of Ukraine's young people, who drew the world's attention to the alarming actions of their own administration. The protesters are young men and women under the age of 26, which is the draft age. From their perspective, the participants in the 2014 Maidan protest and the Orange Revolution 2 decades ago are the legendary heroes of a free Ukraine. Mykola Kniazhitsky, a member of Ukraine's parliament, said that the scale of the protest came as a surprise to the authorities. Young people understand that there will be no support for us if Ukraine becomes a corrupt state like Russia. They are fighting for their future and our future, and for victory in the war, too, because it depends on that. The people said they want Ukraine to uphold the values for which people are dying on the front lines. And I think that message got through to the authorities. Our partners also understood that the Ukrainian people will fight for a free, democratic, and independent country. The Ukrainian parliament, or Verkhovna Rada, did end up reversing the disastrous decisions made a week ago. But this opportunity was exploited by Russian war propaganda and its echo chambers, which repeated the slogan, "Ukraine does not want to fight corruption." Even the young protesters understand this perfectly well. Last night, the Russians launched another assault on Kyiv. The city was filled with the sound of anti-aircraft missiles exploding and the moped-like sound of unmanned aircraft engines. 6 civilians were killed, 32 more were wounded, many seriously. Hopefully, Ukrainian authorities have understood that, in their case, recklessness, even in the form of lawmaking, leads to death and suffering for the soldiers and civilians of the war-torn country. The chants of young people, corruption is death, are to be taken literally in Ukraine.
The deadline set by the United States for countries wishing to avoid tariffs in trade relations with America to sign trade agreements is coming to an end. In recent hours, more capitals have announced the conclusion of negotiations. There are also those who will be subject to higher tariff rates for exports to the United States from tomorrow. Among the countries that will be blacklisted by Washington are India and Brazil. The fate of negotiations with China, which has requested an extension of the suspension of tariffs until the completion of negotiations with the United States, is also uncertain. India has a problem. Starting tomorrow, all goods exported to the United States will be subject to a 25% tariff.
Prime Minister Modi is a friend of mine, but they don't do very much business in terms of business with us. They sell a lot to us, but we don't buy from them. You know why? Because the tariff is so high. They have one of the highest tariffs in the world. Now they're willing to cut it very substantially, but we'll see what happens. We're talking to India now. We'll see what happens. It doesn't matter too much whether we have a deal or whether we charge them a certain tariff, but you'll know at the end of this week.
In addition, India may pay an additional customs duty for supporting the Russian raw materials market, which will be subject to sanctions from Washington if Moscow does not decide to suspend hostilities in Ukraine. Delhi is feeling the pressure. Indeed, US tariffs have become part of a political storm within the country. Indians are well aware of the potential crisis with a significant increase in the prices of their products on the US market. All the more so because in the United States they are competing with China for customers.
The main issue sitting in front of India today is that the government has destroyed our economic policy, has destroyed our defense policy, has destroyed our foreign policy. Okay? They are running this country into the ground.
Brazil found itself in a similar predicament with a 50% tariff imposed on all goods due to the political situation. This is a real disaster for a market that is overwhelmingly based on exports to the United States. This coffee is exported in very large quantities. Brazil is the world's largest producer and exporter, so there will be a surplus of coffee, and the trend is that prices in Brazil will fall until they find another way to export to other countries. Delegations from Canada, China and the United Kingdom, among others, are still in negotiations. They may be excluded from the August 1st deadline, given the progress of talks. Every day, more countries announce success in the negotiations. The latest agreement has been signed by South Korea, which concluded a series of agreements on the construction of merchant ships. The most important point of this agreement is the expansion of cooperation with the United States in the shipbuilding sector. The South Korean and US shipbuilding fund of $150 billion will cover the entire shipbuilding ecosystem, including shipbuilding, MRO, and equipment. It will be invested in specific projects based on the needs of companies in our country. At the same time, Trump is constantly monitoring the markets and responding to specific sectors of the economy. This is the case, for example, with tariffs on copper imports. The 50% rate announced in recent days is intended to stem the flood of foreign raw materials into the US market and force American companies to mine domestically. The same applies to steel and aluminium, which, according to Trump's election promises, are to be produced domestically.
Political earthquake in Lithuania. The country's Prime Minister Gintautas Paluckas has resigned, according to the Lithuanian president. His departure from office is linked to a corruption investigation. Lithuanian Prime Minister Gintautas Paluckas announced he would resign after facing pressure to do so over his business ties to a company owned by his sister-in-law. Paluckas in a statement said his past mistakes had hindered the work of his government, prompting his quick and confident decision to resign. Opposition parties in the Baltic country have criticized Paluckas for business dealings, in which a company he co-owns sold electric batteries to another firm owned by his sister-in-law, in a deal financed by a government agency. Paluckas had in recent weeks denied any wrongdoing. The next prime minister will be picked by Paluckas' Social Democrat Party, which holds 52 out of 141 seats in parliament, said Mažvydas Jastramskis, a political analyst with the Vilnius Institute of of International Relations and Political Science.